This is a piece I composed a number of years ago after being inspired sitting injured on the side of an An Tir West war. I call it the Battle at Gold Beach, or the Schildeburg, in Old English meaning the shield wall. I am Morgan, one of many. A fighter indeed, one of few. Master of armies, the might of our people. I give to you now the battle at Golden Beach. In Dragon's Lair are found many fearsome warriors, boldly minded and broad of chest, swift with sword and strong with shield, and girt with gold from many grand campaigns. Sagely led are the serpent folk, by coronets argent, those earls wide praised, and generous givers of golden rings. But feeders of ravens are the folk of the dragon, when battle calls to the killing place. Many summers past saw such a day, when King Eric's lions lined the fields to glut the wolves at Golden Beach. The West had brought many, the might of the crown, ermine and Greeks in glory arrayed, as the wolves and the ravens awaited the dead. Then the war would beat shields as the West started forward. Too numerous the enemy, quickly opening holes, as the lines of An Tir were torn by their frenzy. There said to one, the war leader, as the West stormed through, "King Eric stands alone, and ermine bears forth." Then called Connor aloud, the lord of the Laire, "Rush to his side, you serpent soldiers!" Then black and red they entered battle's fray. Arrows struck and sword winds screamed. Shields were broken and bold men bled. Red on the field for that fearsome king. Connor the warlord for the West was a scourge. His sinister blade scattered blood across the field. The barony's bear shirts bore the brunt of that fight, time and again ending the onslaught of the enemy's axes and endless spears. In the midst of that crush spoke the king to our baron. "Let them believe that they win, and we'll lure them to castle, to be chewed and spat back by your unbreakable few." So the red and the black, by royal command, gave ground to that foe in that gore-strewn field. And the West, in their frenzy of fighting and killing, were quick to oblige, and came all unaware, ignoring commands of the men who knew better. They fell back to the gates of the Burg in the valley, slow with the wounded, the slain being dragged. The attackers believed their triumph at hand, lapsed in their judgment, and let them achieve the bridge for the gates, the West's blunder complete. In the narrow way, numbers went nothing, and that band of the dragon drew up across the span. It was here that Connor, his heroes arrayed, and gave voice to an idea he had dreamed of for long. He called for the testudo, the turtle of shields. So they raised up their linden and locked them as one, to break the West like waves on the rock and break they did, those doughty warriors. In droves they came, and crashed and crumpled, as those brave few crouched neath creaking wards, and blood and groans in gruesome music played notes inside their circle strong. And behind them all, in awesome glory, stood fearsome Eric, unneeding of aid, feeding the eagles with the fall of his sword, till rivers of gore scored grooves in the earth. And the dead lay in heaps neath his hewing arm. Minutes and hours piled up with the dead, but the Schildeborg held, the horde repelled. Then lo, through the wails of the West and their dying, came silence and peace. Men peeked round their shields, shook from them the dead, and drew to their feet. There in their draw, amidst the dew of the slaughter, there stood but one man, the king of the West. Many there were whose mettle would test against that great sovereign and his sopping blade. Many there were who then wound up dead, now mead hall bound at the feet of that giant. But King Eric stepped forth, his foe to challenge, lord to lord, and last to stand. The thunder of blades that then did follow could be heard by the Aesir in Asgard's halls. Leather was parted, and mail was pierced, and in the heroes' hands were hewn the shields, until in that fray the West King fell, his helmet cleaved deep by Dagar's son. Despite the odds, stood An Tir proudly, as Valkyries gathered the valiant dead. Many among them were the folk of the Laire, red tunics shredded and shields asunder, for spending their lives in their lord's defense, their bravery assured at a bench in Valhalla. We drink in this memory, mead drafts deep, and toast the courage of comrades in battle, to deeds done bravely in black and in red, the dragon's folk, family, and heroes.